Hi, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum, how are you, Val?
Welcome to Interfaith Insights. This is really a spotlight on faith with very special guest today, Qari Asim MBE, Senior Imam at Makkah Mosque in Leeds, which has won the award of being UK's Model Mosque, Chair of Mosques and Imams National Advisory Board, Senior Editor of Imams Online, Trustee of the British Future think tank, which addresses identity, integration, and migration. And I'm sure many things I haven't included on your distinguished CV. So it's great to have you, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Ian. It's a pleasure to join you today and look forward to a frank and honest conversation.
Wonderful. So what we're focusing on today really is the importance of dialogue. And the first question I have for you is, what got you interested in interfaith dialogue?
I've been in the interfaith circles for over 15 years, and really it was firstly when I am involved in interfaith dialogue, it's not for a PR exercise or because fashionable. I believe that my faith, Islam, inspires me and encourages me to participate and have interfaith dialogue. It's part of the divine plan that there will always be people of different faiths and different backgrounds. And, imagine having a garden with just one color of flowers. And with just one smell, it will be beautiful. It's better than not having any flowers in the garden. But ultimately, it's the multiple colors and the diversity that really brings a huge enrichment to our lives. And so my first and foremost inspiration is my faith itself. And so, for instance, when Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he migrated from his homeland to another city called Medina. And because he was persecuted in his own land, just like all of the prophets have been, like Prophet Jesus, Moses, all of them, were being persecuted by their own people. And he found refuge and shelter with a different community. And he could have been an isolationist. He could have been, in that new place, he could have been very exclusivist, because when you've been through so much persecution, you want to just protect yourself and bring about that security around you. Yet when he had the opportunity to be an exclusivist, to be an isolationist, he brought communities together. And he said that we are all ummah wahida, people of different faiths. He said that we are one nation, one community, and we will defend each other, we'll protect each other. We will have our differences, because there are distinct differences of beliefs and practices, and they're important because they identify us. For me, interfaith dialogue isn't about diluting our faiths, but rather actually enhancing our faiths. Because when we interact with people of other faiths, people sometimes ask you questions that perhaps you never thought about, or when you are learning with them, or doing scripture reasoning with them, it helps you to explore and look at your own faith from different perspectives. So I think interfaith dialogue enriches us in our experiences, and it brings about that community cohesion that's much needed. Interfaith dialogue is increasingly being recognized by governments across the world, in particular in Europe, as crucial to developing cohesive communities. And so it was to sum up the answer, it was my own faith that inspired me to get involved in interfaith dialogue, but also the need that I saw that ultimately everyone has good intentions and there are people of good faith, but they sometimes lack confidence, sometimes lack understanding to reach out to the other. And the more we reach out to the other, the better world we will be able to create for ourselves and for others.
Thank you. That's very inspiring. So you've talked a little bit about the importance of interfaith dialogue in community cohesion, obviously bringing people together, and how that has been inspired by your faith. What about interfaith dialogue in terms as a tool to address human rights abuses? How might this help us to tackle some of the big issues that we're facing today?
we live in the conscious presence of difference in our world, at work, on our television, on social media. We constantly encounter faiths, cultures whose ideas and ideals are unlike ours. That can be experienced as a profound threat to identity. And and then that threat or insecurity is then sometimes reflected in how we react to the others. And this is where human rights come in, that when we feel our own rights are endangered, that we need protection, then sadly we persecute others, we intimidate others, we threaten others, we abuse others, and we also then persecute others. And that's happening across the world. And there's no community is immune from it, and no community is protected from it. Now, how can faith be a force and a tool to stop the abuse of human rights? Ultimately, for all of our faiths, in particular Abrahamic faiths, talk about the oneness of God, and also the importance of a human being. So, for instance, in my tradition, Islam, we have this concept that there are certain rights of God, obligations towards God, and there are certain obligations towards human beings. And unless you fulfill both of these obligations, you're not following the faith. You're not a successful individual in this world and in the next world. It can't be that you are just constantly, you spend, let's say 24 hours a day in a mosque, and yet you abuse others, you harm others. Then this is not following faith. So as a result, faith is an important tool for our faith to condemn violation of human rights, to stop violation of human rights, because ultimately faiths inspire morality and moral good. That everyone is created, if I use the Christian tradition, everyone is created in the image of God, and therefore you have to reflect that humanity in your actions, and so it's not just the moral compass that faith provides, but also that deeply rooted, that for us, violation of human rights is not just a violation of a rights that's enshrined in, let's say, Human Rights Act or in the UN Charter. Rather, it's a right that's enshrined in divine message. And if I therefore violate someone else's right, I am not only going against the law of the land, but also sinning. And so this is a powerful tool, this concept of sin, to stop us violating other people's rights. And I think where things have gone wrong, where there's a persecution of the Christian community in parts of the world, including the Muslim majority countries, or Islamophobia or anti-Semitism, we all, people of faith, need to ensure that we show that leadership to reach out to the other and forcefully, vigorously stand against all forms of violation of human rights against all communities.
And have you got any examples from your own experience in Leeds or other areas where communities have come together? Maybe there have been incidents of Islamophobia or anti-Semitism or something, and your communities have come together to support one another?
Yeah, there are numerous examples that have happened. So, for instance, we've seen effectively when the mosques have been attacked, like after the Christchurch in New Zealand, people formed a human chain around mosques, especially on Friday, where lots of people were coming, lots of people attend for prayers. And similarly, when synagogues have been attacked, or when churches were attacked in Sri Lanka or other places, it's like forming a human chain around places of worship to show the symbolic solidarity. So that's one aspect of the things that we've seen. Secondly, we did something in Leeds where three faiths came came together, Muslim, Christian, and Jewish community, and we organized this conference before COVID-19. It was about standing together, where a Christian leader spoke about anti-Semitism. So standing in others' shoes, spoke about anti-Semitism. I, as a Muslim faith leader, spoke about the persecution of Christians in Muslim majority countries, and the Jewish rabbi spoke about Islamophobia. So it was empathizing towards the other, but actually putting ourselves into their shoes to see how things are happening there. And also, I think that the golden rule is, sometimes I say to people, like, whenever you are making a remark about other community, simply replace the word, Muslim to Christian, or vice versa, and see how would you feel if that was something that was being said about you. So literally standing into the shoes of others helps us to stand together. And then there's one last example I want to mention, is that we have a local cafe which serves people in need, including those vulnerable, homeless, refugees, and it's placed in a church. And it's the local grocers, local communities, including Muslims, and all of us come together, prepare food together to serve those who are in need and in vulnerable positions. So it really creates a melting pot of people coming together, and not just talking about community cohesion, but actually delivering that community cohesion, in our neighborhoods and our communities.
That's wonderful to hear of. And do you have any rules or tips for successful dialogue from your own experience? What works well?
Yeah, I think there's no hard and fast rule about interfaith dialogue, but obviously there are some universal values and common sense. I think it's one is, it's having an open mind, and then a magnanimous spirit, that you are, you should be able to absorb rather than actually combat what's being said about your faith or how others see your faith. And so that's starting with a heart and a mind, open mind, and a magnanimous spirit. Then secondly, I think we need to have a listening ear. We learn when we listen, and it's really important that we do that. That thirdly is about honesty and frankness, and there should be trusting relationship between people, that they unless we allow people that space to be honest and share their thoughts, we risk silencing people or shutting down a conversation, which doesn't really help. And finally, I think it's always think about the putting yourself in, empathizing, putting yourself into the other's shoes in terms of how would they feel if they're talking about a fear and threat. Then it must be genuine. Where is it coming from? Trying to understand why is it that you feel like that, rather than actually saying, well, simply no, that's not the case. So I think these 4 points are really important in terms of listening, having an honest conversation, and open mind, and thirdly, challenging, but in a way that doesn't go against the ethos of a debate.
Great. And I think you've touched on this already, but what do you see as a role of dialogue today? You mentioned a little bit about community cohesion. Is there any other potential benefits from dialogue that you can explain?
Yeah, absolutely. I think without having an interfaith, we do not have any other option but to have an interfaith dialogue. And that's partly because we all need to coexist. And we all share the Mother Earth, and we have a lot more in common than that which divides us. We have our distinct practices and distinct beliefs, but at the same time, it is about sharing the Mother Earth, the environment that God has given to us. So, for interfaith dialogue to be successful, I think we need to focus on two things. One is that social actions, that something that people can relate to, whether it's coming together to clean the streets, or serve at a local food bank, or organize a sports activity together, something that gives people a momentum to be part of a circle of friends, or in interfaith circle. And there will be different things that different people can relate to. So for instance, for some it may be just a cup of tea and a dialogue that helps them. For others, especially for young people, I think as people of faith, we need to make ourselves relevant to young people, and that requires us doing things that they want faith to contribute to. And so social action is really important from that perspective. And finally, there are a lot of people out there who want to divide communities, who want to sow the seeds of hatred and division, and perhaps sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally. And we as people of faith need to drown out those voices and reoccupy the space online that's sometimes occupied by hatred and division. And I must say that I think the UK does it can be seen as an exemplar of interfaith work. It's not perfect, and there are so many gaps, and there are sometimes individual relationships rather than actually organizational work that's done, and so all of those shortcomings and weaknesses we need to recognize. But at the same time, I think we need to celebrate that there is a lot more that happens in this country than perhaps elsewhere in the world. And this can be used as a precedent, an example for people to focus on civility rather than controversy, and also see how much we can be impactful for others. So ultimately, I think we just need to assume that everyone has good intentions, and we need to reach out to them. We need to hold each other's hands, figuratively speaking, to implement those good intentions in our neighborhoods and in our lives.
I just wondered, what do you say to people who come to you and say to Imam, I don't see the point of interfaith. Where does it get us? So what do you say to these people? Do you say to them, well, we can tackle so much more by working together? Or how do you encourage people to get involved?
Yeah, no, it's hard to actually quantify what interfaith dialogue achieves, but it's no, and in a way, it's perhaps we're not here to achieve any particular quotas or anything as such. What we are here is to create a cohesive society. What we try to do is create a cohesive society, and that's not because it's a government agenda that there should be cohesion. Rather, I think before any civil servant or anyone came up with the concept of community cohesion, God Almighty created this concept of community cohesion, gave us all the message to live and coexist, live side by side and coexist. And so it is part of practicing our faith that we do interfaith dialogue. Violence and exclusion against people is easy, especially when you are pushed, when you're challenged in certain geographical location in the world. But it's the interreligious dialogue that helps us see that there's shared humanity, and that shared humanity encourages us to just sit and have a dialogue with each other. We've seen, like with the Brexit debate, in a way, that there were people in the same household coming from different sides to the debate, and what ultimately what it was, that it was people just talking to each other that heals the wounds. And so interfaith dialogue provides healing, it provides passion, it provides a new momentum to create a better world and to reach out to others and inspire a more systematic growth of activities and initiatives beyond one's own religion or faith towards developing cross-community cooperation and collaboration.
Imam Qari, Asim, you've been very inspiring. Just thank you so much for your time today and for joining us.
Thank you, Iain. It's been a pleasure to be part of this dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you so much.